Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and I just realized there's my clock in the background. Just sitting here, just right there, and realizing in the dark. Anyway, hello, everyone. Welcome to this corner of the interwebs where we get to talk about hard science fiction and tabletop role playing games and everything in between. And of course, as a fan of such a thing, I am extremely enamored by seeing anything related to hard science fiction and tabletop role playing games, including myself, who is a freelance tabletop RPG contributor, a few small projects, and I thought I'd like to talk about the one that uh, I am currently designing here live. That's wow, cold open. Yep, absolutely. Will it show up? There we go. Okay, there we go. I'm sorry. I always try different new things to get you guys involved in it. Anyone that's able to take part in this show live, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, of course, is a co-host because you guys always bring the brilliance. So thank you very much. Unfortunately, sometimes my one of the tenets of the show is to be a place to be inspired, and oftentimes we world builders and game designers and all the above in our various artistic endeavors, we get blocked. We are stuck with new ideas and very little inspiration. And I try to be inspired by even the most minor things, whether it's a small meal or a random event that you see happening, a television show, a novel or book or whatever, oftentimes being inspired by you guys. Then life happens, and then even that breaks it. Not that you guys care, but finally I was able to get some home repairs done by some contractors, and there was uh, there was some threats, um, monies and legalities that happened to get the work done on the home, all of it leading to having my entire roof and siding replaced because it was not up to code slightly more than 20 years ago. And that non code issue led to damages that need to be replaced and repaired. And in the current age, no one wanted to do that or be responsible for that. And then I had to figuratively raise my voice by placing my hand upon um, social medias and connections and attorney general's offices and better business bureaus and those kind of reporting agencies to go, no, technically you still are responsible for that. Doesn't matter how long it's been. It's someone's being responsible for that. You guys are major corporations and contractors. You can go collect your cash from those other people, and it end up. Long story short, they end up, for those who have siding on housing, if you understand what it's about, they have to nail this stuff into um, around the house, and it knocked everything off the walls, and so it really distracted me. It really distracted me. So what does that have to do with inspiration? Well, it made me think about, like, um, we in tabletop role playing terms. There's a lot of things that we think of that are like the sexy part when it comes to designing settings or coming up with ideas for the next session for our games. And then there's the practicality of the thing, right? The practicality is, oh, I'm going to sit down and write. And then you're distracted for hours upon hours because of emails and text messaging and having conversations and someone who's really not into what you're into who keeps distracting you, or um, you're trying to remain focused, but there's this new interesting television show or new release movie or something, and it keeps pulling you away, and you're like, "Stop turning that on!" It really makes me think about technology and current. Yeah, no, not that bad, Drew. For example, Douglas A. Burton, the the author of the novel that I just finished about the heroine's labyrinth was just on Retro Nerd Girl, and I had that on in the background while I'm trying to get things done, and I'm like shaking my head, like, why am I listening to this? Because it's cool, but I shouldn't be. Um, that happened to be one thing. Something else that I need to make this brighter in the background. Mm-mm-mm. Let's go with like bubbly. Let's do that. Yeah, I agree with you there, and King. And King's like, yeah, yeah, 24 hours is enough for a day when you really get down to it. I definitely agree. Or we could cheat if we were able to make more of us. What's the dumb comedy movie? Multiplicity, where the guy ends up making a clone of himself so he can get more done in a day, and then that clone makes a clone of himself so he can have some fun, and then that clone makes a clone of himself and starts making uh and there's a degradation as more clones are being made, and and there's a very strange tie up at the end of the movie because the clones don't disappear, they kind of go away because they all like are in support of each other. Pretty fun. I didn't mute my phone. I checked for nose goblins, but I didn't mute my phone. That's terrible. So I would like to go over. I might display, but I also like to go over the one of the finalities, because that's a terrible way to say this. Current iteration is a better way, although that even that doesn't sound final, of Obsidian Star and how this system works. And I've been trying to cut it, and boy, the method of just cutting it down to its bare minimums is horrible. Um, and it's necessary, but it's horrible. And so I like to go over that a little bit, and then talk about some tabletop role playing games and science fiction, knock that out the way, and talk about how I've narrowed things down, and maybe you guys can learn from it by either doing like, yeah, that's horrible, I am never going to do what DBJ did, or you may just embrace it and go, you know what, I'm probably going to steal it and do it better, which is also an option as well. So that, and of course talk about some of the other projects that I'm projects as if project singular that I'm part of, connected to. So let's see if I can see. I want to see how this looks, to be honest with you, because I've also had a also wanted to know what this looks like, and I can't do this unless I'm live. Oh, that's how it. Oh, that's how it looks. All right, let's see. Okay, no, that's horrible. You can't see it there. And maybe that looks better. There we go. Okay. Um, so for those who do not know, this is a going to be a free tabletop role playing game. I'm putting it in a Google Doc right now to make it as simple as possible. No art, no layout, and very minimal layout opportunity. The most I might actually do this to in general is I might make it a black screen with white lettering, but you can't print anything out. So I may just leave it as is, and then from there I'm going to take that, transfer it over um, to Affinity, which I'm learning to use, and then get some layout, apply some art assets that I've been creating and acquiring, and then make it a little bit more interesting to look at instead of just a bunch of pages. So Obsidian Star is a hard science fiction setting that takes place within our own solar system, and the characters play stars. They are the I love double meanings and triple entendres and such. And so, of course, they are, like in Hollywood, they are the stars of the show, and they shine bright. And as player characters, they are the unique individuals in a solar system filled with a trillion souls or more. And and in this endeavor to make these characters, it is a post-human, transhumanist, hard but future science fiction setting. And so um, player character creation and development is as different 300 years in the future as we are to our ancestors 200 and 300 years in our past. So just think about that. Like, what would life be like 300 years in our future thinking exponentially, because human beings and human development has been growing exponentially in our terms of our embrace of knowledge and technology. And our brains can very easily embrace linear progression. It's difficult for us to embrace um, exponential development. So this game is known, or I've given it the title, the Art and Science 2D12 system, and this is how it's explained. And I it helps me to read out loud a thing, because then I can realize how idiotic it sounds when it's read out loud. Similar to designing like fantasy and sci-fi names. It's like if you don't read them out loud, as foolish as it makes you sound doing so, it also makes you sound foolish if you don't do it, because some of the names sometimes can be a little bit like um, but anyway, yes, it is the art and science system, uses 2d12 or two 12-sided dice. Art results are the fiction first narrative in the setting. This is where we get together and talk about what the results of the die roll might mean, without applying specific rules. It's all about the fiction. And so I haven't figured out where to place it in, but as Drew has educated me, and I'm very appreciative of it, the fruitful void is a concept, and I'm embracing that part. That's what the art of art and science is about. The science represents the numerical values, such as dice results, numerical values of the game. So these are the numbers, these are the rules of the game. Very prescribed, and mixing the two is how we resolve things. Characters as stars confront problems and create solutions. Assign one die as the light die, the other die the dark die, simply called the light and the dark. And so later in the document, I just call it the light and the dark. And the light is the light D12 that you rolled, and the dark is the dark D12 that you rolled. Preferably a white and black die, but they don't need to be that way. You can just assign any, you know. You're going to get contrarians possibly at your gaming table, so they, the dark blue die is the light die, and I'm going to take the yellow die as the, you're going to get that. The light is in favor of the character, the star. The numerical value of the light reduces the problem. The dark complicates the star's goals, placing setbacks, obstacles, and or hazards in the way of the star. Stars may have their traits or gear removed by the dark, called a loss. So characters just don't suffer damage; they suffer loss, and that loss could be physical, combat. It can come from physical exploration of a thing, breaking a leg or twisting someone's back, or dislocating a shoulder. Loss can come from social interactions, emotional stress, trauma, that sort of thing. So, and that's why it's all lumped together called loss. Before the dice are rolled, the players describe what they want. They also describe what they don't want, a partial success and a failed state that moves the action forward. Collectively, the GM and players use the dice to adjudicate random actions. So this happens before the dice meet the table. And I want this to be like an open conversation more than extremely prescribed kind of thing. Like, oh, this is what what I like my character to do. And it could be very long term. Oh, I want to finish this operation, or I want to study at this, I don't know, interstellar university, or I want to make a connection in the entertainment world, or I want to and it's describing those things. And then we get to discuss, well, what's the fail state of doing that? I want to become a trio producer. Okay, well, if I don't, I will probably be embarrassed and lose a lot of money, burn some connections, and those kind of things. And we start just talking back and forth as to what that would look like. Then we roll the dice and see what happens. There's three options for the stars, for the light and the dark, and gameplay, the order of operations. I should put these in a different order, but I haven't decided how I'm going to do that. You guys have to say. No, Drew. You also mean let's see. Don't damn it. Don't forget Karen and Karen And um, oh, what's the other one? I can't. I know there's another one in there, but yeah, yeah, you can't forget those either. Yeah, read Karen and Cairn. And can't forget the Karen and Karen, because there's an uppercase and lowercase. Uppercase K's are cool people, and we love the uppercase Karens. We don't like the lowercase Karens. But and actually I do like the RPG Karen, um as well as the downgraded planet, who is a sister to Pluto, which is known as Cairn. And I believe it's also pronounced Charon, and oh, there's another way to pronounce the boatman to the other side of death, but I can't remember the pronunciation. Whenever we go live, this is the horror of someone doing a live stream, and only doing live streams, is that is that it really displays the unavoidable non-intellectual portion of my brain on display for everyone, so you guys get to make fun of me. Um, so there are three options for the players when they roll 2d12, and I'm not sure if I should keep this in the order that I've placed it. So now that I'm talking out loud, I think I might switch them. So I'm not a proponent of constantly rolling dice to adjudicate what the hell is going to happen. Um, uh, Commonly, we rolled in many games, we or traditional trad games or tradition in games, we roll dice to find out who goes first. There are other ways to not roll dice to find out who goes first. Sometimes it's round robin around a table. Sometimes the dice are rolled once at the beginning of the session, and we just keep that same order. When games are displayed online, oftentimes, who's ever hosting the game will go, okay, on my screen, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in that order, and that's the order we're going to go. Um, Whatever, popcorn initiative, drawing cards for initiative. My friends, we used to roll initiative every single round, and we rolled a d6 to find out who goes first. Um, I I understand how much that throws people off. I can't imagine rolling initiative every round, as if rolling attack dice and damage dice and saving throws every round isn't a thing as well. But whatever. Um, so in this game, when you roll 2d12, that represents when your action happens. It also represents your action dice. Whenever you take an action, you apply the dice to that action, and it also is the results of that action. So one die roll is going to represent all of that. And I hope this rolling dice once and using that to adjudicate the actions for the entire round becomes a norm, because on one hand, it does seem like it's not very dynamic, but on the other hand, the player gets to decide how they take their actions, including um, being able to game the system to resolve things so that the dice don't have an effect, if that makes sense, right? So, which will encourage a player to go, ooh, my dice just like, I really shat in the wind on that one. So this round I'm gonna try to perform some actions where I really don't need the dice roll to get some forward progress or some success on it, on purpose. And as a game master, I'd be looking at that like, okay, and that may mean that the run and gun player, you know, puts their automatic X-ray laser carbine on their shoulder to maneuver around the giant robots that are hunting them down, scanning the background, right? Because now the player knows that their combat action is probably going to fail. So instead, they may take some other actions like saving innocents or downloading files or remaining hidden from view or something like that. So, and that's a physical thing. So yes, it's initiative order from 1 to 12. Start at 12 and count our way back down. So if you roll 2d12 and you roll a a 6 and a 9. Your first action takes place on 9. Your second action takes place on 6. So we just count down. There are some modifiers to initiative rolls, but you'll get it. So that is the order of the thing. Hey, when do you go? Anywhere from 12, and you count down 12, 11. Who rolled a 10? Okay, you take your action. There are no long lists of actions. You just take an action. I'm describing an action as an action can be described as a verb noun. So use the same die results from above. So a verb noun is like I attack the robot. So verb, I attack, and the noun is the robot. I move to safety. I activate the machine. I investigate the evidence. An action is a verb now, so it can be very generalized, and very generalized on purpose. So just doing it that way. There we go. So there are 3 options for using the dice. So the dice are static, but the way you use them can be dynamic. So the player chooses one of 3 options detailed below. Because initiative is rolled first and the results of the dice are visible, the player can game the system by being strategic. So the grandest, boldest way to use the dice is the bright light and deep shadows. Use the full result of the light. Suffer a loss of the total result of the dark. So you roll the dice. Your light die is what you want to use. You use the entire result of that to numerically reduce the problem or what have you. And but unfortunately, it means that you also suffer a loss of the dark. Of course, this means that in your benefit, you rolled very high on the light die and very low on the dark die. Maybe this happens, maybe not. Maybe you're just willing to suffer an equal amount of a hit, but you get to use the full result. Second option is light the corners. So you can reduce the dark by the results of the light. This can reduce the dark to 0, causing no loss to the star. This results in a simultaneous reduction in the die result of the light. So if the same character rolled a 9 and a 3, they rolled a light of 9 and a dark of 3. They can, their action takes place on 9. Their second action takes place on 3. They go to perform some action, but really, they don't really want to suffer any loss. So they subtract the dark, which is they take the difference between the dice. Let's put it that way. And the light die would then be reduced by the dark die. So 3 from 9, it gets reduced to 6. That means the character suffers no loss, but they can only use 6 to resolve whatever action there is. So using like lighting the corners basically just means like, you know what, I'm going to be a bit more careful and strategic in how I do this so that I don't suffer as much downfall or setback. Now, there's also embrace the dark. So the character, the star decides to use the dark. And in this case, the GM assigns a complication, setback, or condition that complicates the star's goals. In combat, this is called baggage. And so in other words, let's say the dark die is higher than the light die. You're like, I really want to succeed on this. I'm going to use, let's see, we rolled that 9 and a 3. The dark die is higher. The player can instead, I'm going to use the dark die instead. If they choose to do that, they get their success, but they also suffer some kind of setback or complication. And we've already, before we roll the dice, we had this conversation. So now we know what to expect when this happens, with input from all the players and the game master basically adjudicating like, these are some great ideas. I like what you guys said about this. Of course, as a GM, I may have some knowledge that you don't know about. So I mix it in there and go, okay, well, here's what's going to happen if you decide to use the dark die. And then it's like, okay, so it's the light and the dark. And so that's really the simplicity of the system. You either get to use, I want to use what's in my benefit, but I'd suffer a loss. I use what's in my benefit to reduce my loss, or I use the dark die, which is a complication. And that can happen. A player can roll the dice And this table conversation, as we start to take our actions, is what moves the narrative forward, the art. And the science, of course, is all the numbers. So Drew says, that sounds very gamey. Not sure if I like that. Sure, I agree. It's not for everybody, and it is very gamey. But okay, uh, I think there's some players that like to game the system, and instead of fighting against gaming the system, I'm making it a feature, right? So it seems a bit in the face, right? Because at first when I was like, nah, I don't really want to do that, but then I said, well, why hide it? You know, because there are some players who are trying to win. They are very much trying to win the system mathematically, and by like, I want to make a build, or I want the dice to always be in my favor, and I said, well, yeah, but life is kind of like that, right? Like maybe we don't feel like we're rolling dice, but we are trying to game life. And post-humans are pretty intelligent. I mean, they are, your characters are at the peak of human development or mechanical development or whatever. And for us, a split-second decision, is very um, it's an ephemeral thing. It's all fog and mirrors and things. We make a split second decision and we don't know what the results are, even though we like to pretend they are. And in this game system, no, you probably can make a split second decision that's going to be in your favor. So what I think is rubbing you the wrong, and I'm just making assumptions, so I apologize for trying to make an ass out of you assumption, but it sounds gamey, but it's also a discussion. And I want to embrace the discussion of this so that both people who fall on the art side and people on the science side are actually having the same conversation, even though it seems like it's not happening that way. So yes, the players can roll the dice and go, ooh, my character, I wanted to run and gun and fight the robots, and I know I'm not gonna, like, that die result is not going to be in my favor. All right, GM. Instead, what I'm going to do is this other thing, right? And yes, it does mean the player is literally trying to avoid the the harmful effect of rolling a terrible die roll, but it also means the player, like the fiction of the setting, the fictional circumstances are, they put themselves in a terrible position and are making a new tactical decision to get around it. Like, ooh, I don't have a good shot at the robots. Well, you didn't have a good shot because you literally just rolled dice and effed up anything that was going to progress you forward. So now you're deciding to do something else, right? So yes, it is a in-world fiction first thing that the character knows what their chances and results of success and failure may be. And when I say it's the fiction first, like, characters have um, emulated AI in their brains. They have access to sensors. They are science fiction extra planetary explorers and things like that. They kind of know when their oxygen levels are down to 13%, and they know that they twisted their ankle and their biomonitor's going off. Like, this is the embrace of the fiction. So yeah, Drew, I can see how it would rub you the wrong way, especially if you are as a self-proclaimed, like, storyteller, um, game designer, and I'm falling far more on the science side of that spectrum. Um, there's one thing that also throws a monkey wrench into this, and we're talking about the constellations. So constellations are a group of player characters. Constellations are the stars grouped together. Maybe I should just read it. A constellation is a collection of stars unified under one banner and focused on one goal. The constellation begins each game session with a number of light dice equal to the number of stars present at the game. The GM also begins with a single dark die. And this is the monkey wrenching of it. This is the best laid plans. may not work out the way you think they are. And uh, yes, is this like a fate point or inspiration or moxie, hero points, willpower, meta currency? This is absolutely what this is. Um, and we talk about the star in the light and the GM in the dark. So the stars can use one of the light dice held in the constellation. So this extra random unattached light die is not held by a player, it's held within the group. So if there are 4 players, there's 4 light dice that someone can grab and use. Um, and I don't like the way I don't like this. Let's get rid of that. Um, let's see. Nope, I don't like this. Mm-mm-mm. I think I just so I thought of something and it sounds too complicated and I don't like it. So that's horrible wording, but I'll go with it. I'll have to go through it and scrape it. So the a star can grab one of the light dice, and I was going to say replace, but now I'm just going to add. Let's just make it a complete add. So the star can grab one of the light dice and add it to a result so they can gain some sort of success or modification or something like that. And that's the science of it, right? That is I rolled a 3 and a 9. I rolled a 3 on the light die and a 9 on the dark die. And and I really don't want a complication and I don't want to accept the dark die. Oh man. Sorry guys. Hey, I'm going to use one of the light dice within as our group or constellation, whether we are merchant traders or mercenaries or political envoys or an isolated community of trying to save ourselves or alien explorers or whatever the case may be. And I'm going to use one of those to add to my 3 result, which is horrible, and roll the die. And I roll the die and I rolled a 5. I got an 8. Total is 5 plus the 3 is 8. Not higher than a 9, but I might take it. You know what? I might take that as well, and use it as that nature, right? Now, whenever that happens, the game master is then given a dark die to use against the players. And whenever the GM uses the dark die, the players gain a light die. And that economy goes back and forth, which I didn't state here. But that's essentially what it is. So, yep. Yeah, results of the light and the dark create problems and solutions. So the results of the dark die are what the game master then uses against the players. So the players are rolling their own dice, and it's not quite player facing because the GM gets to roll dice, they just don't make up player characters because they represent the rest of the world. So there aren't any stats really for like enemies and bad guys, and it's all about creating problems, and bad guys are physical problems, but those bad guys could also be social problems and economic problems, and whether they are environmental issues or not, those things are placed in the way of the player characters, and there's a numerical issue to it, and then there's the science of it, and then there's a narrative issue to it, which is the art. And if the players are smart, they can eliminate most of their problems if they use the narrative to their benefit, and if not, they can use the science, and of course the science can be used against them by having the game master have a bunches of those dark dice to use against the player characters as they start burning their goodwill in the beginning of the game. We're getting to the very end here. Time, energy, and resources. So you guys know I always talk about time, energy, and resources, and TER, time, energy, resources. I know I make it even more complicated than that because I also add in like it could be used as the word terse, which is like social clout and economics, but I always default to time, energy, resources. Actually, it comes from my mom, who has always explained to me, has always given me life lessons, and just one of those life lessons is like you can always get something done if you're willing to expend the time, energy, and resources to do a thing. The problem is not achieving a goal. What you're really asking of life in general is, I want and need the time, energy, and resources. And is that the cost you're willing to spend to get what you want? And so it's pretty interesting. And you could also measure other people's, you can measure other individuals' impact in your life based on how valuable they think they are versus the time, energy, and resources you want to use for your life to achieve your goals. So some people aren't willing to wait around while you try to figure your shit out, right? There's some people who are just like, yeah, I don't really have time for you to fix yourself. Drew says, how about instead of calling the dice light and dark, calling them progress and entropy? I listen, I you're absolutely correct. I've thought of other words, other nomenclature, but the reason why I did that is because of the title of the game, and it kind of fits into it fits into the theme of the game of the light and the dark. Now I get it. I thought I was flowing too close to the light side and the dark side in terms of like Star Wars. Um, there is no force in this game. It doesn't work that way. Um, and yes, you are very much focused on like the natural language of the thing. Maybe I don't know. I don't know if entropy, maybe like progress and setback would be one. Um, Although the player can pick the dark die, which would be like the entropy of the thing that's stopping them, or I guess would be progress and barrier, progress and you know, forward and backwards. I guess could also be a weird way to put it. Yeah, placeholder names are always a thing when you're a game designer. Um, so yes, I'm not trying to steal from Star Wars. I mean, listen, light and dark are real words. Just because somebody else made them popular doesn't mean that we can't use them. But yeah, it does sound like that, but that's not what it means. Um, but that is exactly what's happening. The players roll dice. Sometimes it's in their favor, sometimes it isn't, and they are trying to use their own resources to make things fall into their favor, or at least suffer less for what they're trying to do. So that's what's going on. Another way to find forward progress is time, energy, and resources. Avoiding rolling dice is a tactic, right? Sometimes success only requires enough time, burning energy, or expending resources. In Obsidian Star, we call these orbits, vitals, and vouches. During character creation, 12 points are divided between these three categories. And so um, what happens is sometimes, or many times, we really don't need you to roll the dice too often, okay? So what we really might need you to do is just expend a resource to get the thing done, which might require expending time, energy, and or resources to get the thing done. Hey, I want to reprogram all the security system now that we're in the hab so that I can close and shut the doors whenever I wish. Great. You can do that, but it's going to cost you time. All right. Okay. I'll let it cost me time. Great. Add one to your orbit. Now, I will describe what orbits, vitals, and vouchers are. They correspond to time, energy, and resources. When an orbit, vitals, or voucher are taxed, adding +1 or more, the star rolls 2d12 as usual. Equal or higher is the goal to avoid downfall. If light is the high die, the star is safe. If the dark is used by the star, the GM and players describe a setback. If the dice are below the score, time runs out, energy levels are drained, or vouchers run out. So run low. How about run low? complete. So an orbit is a countdown timer. It's a clock. It's, you know, the uh, the Forged in the Dark, Blades in the Dark thing has made clocks a popular thing, but countdown timers and pressure timers, tension timers have always been in role playing. Um, Blades in the Dark just happens to have a great numerology for it. I mean, terminology for it, which is a clock. Uh, in this game, orbit is the exact same thing. It is a clock that you create for your character, that when that thing happens, the thing happens in your life at the worst possible moment. Um, and there's a list of those. So, yep, when confronting a challenge, the GM may require the star to spend time, energy, and or resources as the cost. The art is the narrative drain on the star. The science applies 1 to 3 points to the orbit, vitals, or vouch score. So the art is like, what the hell happened that made me cost this time or energy or resources? The science of it is the numbers, and that's how that's why it's called art and science. The art is like, well, what's the narrative mean? How does this make any sense in the game? And then the science, we just apply the numbers. Um, Orbits are time, and so as that score grows higher, it's more, when you roll the dice, will Jabba the Hutt show up, and his agents show up to collect the debt from Han Solo? We don't know yet, but since you keep burning time and putting things off and stressing yourself out with time, this thing may happen. And then below here we have ourselves. Uh, I got 1,001 of these things that I got to put in and type up and stuff like that. But they are written down. I've got my notebook. I've got my Rocket book where I've got all my notes and things written down. So all that stuff's it's just putting it in order and things like that. So here we have a compound table. We got an adversary and agenda. What do they want from you? Who are they and what do they want from you? Maybe you rolled a 5, so you got militant revolutionists, and you rolled a 9. They want to extract memories from you, maybe by force, or maybe they want to ask questions from you or something like that. Vitals is the same thing. Space is always trying to kill you. Vitals is a method to track the necessary requirements to maintain health and safety in the deep vacuum of space. And even if you're artificial being, the same thing applies. So we got organics and biosapes and things like that. And what's wrong with you? Like, and this is more than just being sleepy or being hungry, right? This is about like circadian cycles and calcium deficiency and muscle atrophy and neuroplasticity and radiation and things like that, even meditation and exercise and things like that. And this is where you can avoid it as long as you want, but at a certain point, you're going to keep getting these things stacked on top of your character sheet. This is where the baggage issue comes in. If you are an artificial being, you're going to use the right side of this table. If you are an autonomous creature or a mechanical creature, autonomous creature, auton, things like that, maybe like a holosapien or a emulant, something like that. And so you might have to have like a power cell recharge or a dust and flush and wash or electrostatic spray coating or replace parts and exchange or lubrication and joint alignment or something, whatever the case might be. Thermal bleeding, anti-rad bathing, even an enervation cycling provision, which I don't know what the hell that even means, but we're going to add that in there anyway. And then lastly are vouchers. Vouchers are used as a monetary system of value. Vouchers the total resources needed to take care of an average citizen in a space habitat, such as like living space, nutrients, heat waste, air filtration, and more. And so V's are what? That's money, essentially, kind of. Standard of exchange. And then we'll get into character creation and. All right. Lastly, I decided to get rid of. I decided to get rid of like the extraneous parts of that character sheet that I made. So now an entire character now is nothing but 12 pockets for gear, 12 traits, and each one of those traits can be changed so that instead of character advancement, in the traditional sense, it's lateral progression for character advancement. And you have 12 traits, 12 pockets, 12 slots for your gear, and those 12 will move and exchange and be replaced as characters develop on their own throughout the game. So rather than having a level system or like constantly trying to keep track of bonuses and numbers and things like that, nah, you just got 12 slots. You put things in your slots. If you want more equipment, it's going to replace some of your traits. You're just going to have to make the hard choice as to what your character has or doesn't have, and has with them and won't have, and what those losses are and what those losses are not. And when you acquire baggage, which baggage in a way doubles the amount of loss you can take, the problem is you're going to have to get rid of your baggage in order to heal your losses. So healing baggage can only be done through the art. Healing loss can be done through science. So classic example is, I want to drink a healing potion in fantasy. Well, that's the science of the thing. I roll dice and that's what I get to heal from, right? But baggage is different. Baggage is like a narrative tax on the character. And you want to get rid of your baggage, you're going to have to narratively figure it out. So the science of healing is just like, oh, I just suffered 4 points of damage or 4 points of loss. I'm going to pick and choose which things I mark off my character sheet. That's 4. And then when I want to recover, I can heal up to 4 points. So I'm going to heal 4 of those things back. That's the sign. You're not even, the narrative almost doesn't even matter. It's, I heal 4, I'm back to full, I'm back to the center. But the baggage stuff is all art. So that's where the art and science again comes in. Lastly, the 12 categories that characters will be able to mix and match and choose from are notions, remnants, stitches, patterns, material, style, fashion, threads, patch, zipper, jackets, and outfit. Does all that sound clothing and weaving and creating? Yes, it all comes together, and it all makes sense. But yes, your zipper is your core conviction. I decided to make 12 of them, so I expanded the list out quite a bit, all using E as the title of it. That's a little bit annoying to some people, but I don't know why I like that kind of stuff. There's notions, which are like minor trivial interests. Got to set all that up. Remnants are your background, your past history. Your stitches are your obligations due to your service to an organization or a group or people, maybe even family or friends. Patterns are your mental approach to action. So I decided to take the approaches, remove them, put them into the traits to organize it all under one roof. So you have like your mental approaches to performing an action. You got your physical approaches to performing action and your social approaches to performing an action. And get out of here, Norton. Norton's so annoying. And then you have your fashion, your threads, and your patch. So your fashion is like your demeanor. I do have the note here, right? Yeah. Social status. And your threads are your connections to organizations. And then yes, I know I spelled you wrong. And then your patch is to do profession, vocation. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah. So as beginning characters have 12 slots, they fill their slots up, their gear slots basically, and so your hit points, your loss potential, your survivability is all based on your 12, what you have in your 12 pockets, basically your 12 traits, and you will gain and lose them as characters move along. And if you lose all 12 of them, you're dead. So it's always on the horizon. Now, lateral progression means that as characters progress, we can have a discussion. And there's going to be general rules for this as to what you gain and or choose to lose to get this new thing that replaces your character. So let's think of the action character, pulp action character Tarzan. So Tarzan goes into the jungle, raised by the animals in the jungle, but is approached by explorers from the Euro Theater and is brought back home. And Tarzan may not have any social skills, but gains those social skills. Tarzan as a character doesn't really get better or worse, just changes. So there are storylines where Tarzan loses some of his natural edge to gain social etiquette. So a character, what I'm calling lateral progression, may lose their survival skill to be replaced with elite, I don't know, etiquette or something, or whatever happens when you become very rich and your nose is in the air and you become very arrogant, whatever the case that may be. So that's what that represents. So characters, instead of gaining numerical values and instead of having like long lists of what character classes are, instead players just have to make the hard decision. You know what? I probably don't have this connection to the Black Ops teams any longer because I don't really communicate with them any longer. But instead, what I'm going to do is add to this deep diving in Europa or something like that, right? And those, as characters move and grow, those traits should very much remind the characters of all the adventures they've went through, to the point where a character after 12 sessions could technically be completely different than they were when they first started. So not that they would, because you would literally have to make the choice to literally change every single aspect of the character. Not to mention the fact that as characters die, and yes, characters can choose to die and still come back because they can be re-instanced, they can be zippered back into a new jacket. There are also traits that they're going to lose that they can never choose again. And as those things get marked off and those choices are lost to the character, they start getting back into a corner where they don't have access to those things any longer. So, yep. So the most important thing, not important, but here are some of our core convictions. And I decided to add 6 more into the core convictions. Essentially, it's like alignment. And this is important for the art because it tells us what you're motivated by. And even when your memories are deleted and altered, even when your body switches, even when you can't remember the fact that you actually are your own bad guy and you're just a copy of yourself or something like that, there's still something deep inside of you that is your core conviction. And that's why it's associated with your zipper, your zip drive, your cortical stack, your black box in the back of your brain. But I decided to add 6 more because I wanted to put it with these, the idea of 12, and you got 12 traits, 12 traits, 12 slots each, 12 options. That's at least 144. But if you can mix and match them, it goes well beyond 144. But essentially, there's 144 different options for character creation. That's very simple. And lastly, when you roll the dice and you want them in your favor, you can pick up to 3 of your traits, adding up to +3 to your light and dark dice. And that's how that works. So instead of having like skill levels and things like that, you basically you just answer, because I am a refugee from the Martian Deimos Phoebus conflict, and also because I am a law enforcer, and lastly, because I am a sniper, I get +3. I'm adding +3 because of those things. Because I am a blank, because I have knowledge of, because I was experienced with, because I am connected to. And then we just go, oh, yeah, because you are connected to someone. So you do get a +1. And so skills aren't specifically physical or mental or social. For example, if you are a Olympus Mons mountain climber, which is might be some kind of, you get some kind of clout for being a person who has climbed Olympus Mons before, even though it might be completely illegal and dangerous. You can gain some social clout for that. Guess what? I climbed Olympus Mons, and like, yeah, I saw that you did that. Hey, you're invited in with the rest of us, right? It could also be something that works against you. Hey, because I climbed Olympus Mons, and law enforcement's like, yeah, we know you did it, foolish ass. We told you people not to do that. And then there, of course, there's a physical aspect. Because I'm a mountain climber, I get a bonus as well. So it's like that. So we have our core convictions are exterminator. Of course, it's pretty harmful, right? Eradicate people, places, and or things. Egalitarian. There's also a new one called escapist. Esotericist. Elementalist, and extractor. Along with the other 6 that we already had: explorer, extropian, expansion. I guess it could be expansionist. Excellence, expression, and enterprise. And so this is what motivates you. So if you're an exterminator, you're not an annihilator. Like you're down with taking down structures and people and things and places. And you could describe, like, you don't have to be evil, right? You don't have to be like, I want to destroy everything. No, it could be like, I want to destroy AI, or I want to take down that governmental and anything that represents that governmental uh, entity or whatever, lean or something like that. And you're like, okay, exterminators don't need to be physical. Egalitarians are about equality of access, resources, and influence. The constant fight to what is the definition of equality. We all know that equality is nearly impossible, but it is always a goal to try to achieve. And, whatever. Escapists, that, there's escapists in the mind, VR systems, drugs, things like that, escapists from rules, restrictions. Esotericists are like promotion of ephemeral thought and behavior, like dreams and religion and ascension and meditation and astrology. And I'm not saying these things, there are people who very much believe in those tarot cards and things like that, but writ large, when it comes to science fiction, for esotericists, elementalists are like want to return to like a primeval type of life, natural landscape, survival. Tribal organization is very much for them, very like like anarchy, but like an embraced anarchy in a way. Like, we do things because we just agree to do the thing. And then there's extractors, reliance on math, science, exactors. Sorry, not extractors, exactors. So if you're an exactor, you rely on like math, science, perfection, alignment, um, pragmatism. You are the Spock of conviction and that kind of thing. So anyway, that's it. So that's where we're at. Thank you very much for letting me expound on that. I really appreciate it. So hard segue away from that. I just wanted to show that off to you guys. Not show it, but I had to cut a lot of stuff. I still have old files that I'm referencing, but I'm not going to go back to those files because they are out of they're out of time and out of style and far too complicated. I do like the progress entropy. Maybe not entropy. Probably what I'll use is another term for that. I guess progress setback is probably a better term for it, where characters could then flip the setback into their favor. But if they do that, they suffer the setback, which is probably why I'll be called something like that. I thought about using something other than light and dark, like illuminated and shadowed or something, but that was, I don't know. So, still debating it. Now, talking about, I opened up the show earlier about talking about being distracted by having like trying to come home and then have it like workers smash the side of the walls. And just, my cats were thrown all out. They were just like, what the hell's happening? Someone's trying to break it. It was like having storms pound the roof, but pound the roof constantly for days on end. I still have to get my. They have to schedule our gutters to be placed in, but that should happen without threats because they did respond. So very happy about that. But whew, some legalese going on. But it also made me think about, um, trying to focus on a thing and being distracted from that thing, and it made me think gaming wise, role playing gaming wise, that we often don't. Our heroes in the game, our player characters, the characters that we make in games, are often pretty damn superhuman and often don't have a lot of distractions going on in their life. But I think if we were to look at some of our favorite, well written, well executed storylines, from graphic novels and books and movies, television shows, and things of that nature, usually there's a lot of things stacked one after another that try to distract our main character. And competency, competent characters have an inordinate ability to focus and not be distracted. And from a male point of view, and I'm being very generalized here, and I can be extremely uh, very easily educated on my opinion on this aspect, but um, there's a point of pride when it comes to accomplishments, and one of the things that it tries to be reinforced to be a good dude is to accomplish goals, and that requires focusing on a thing. And oftentimes people find, in real life, those who can focus on a goal are admired for their ability to focus on that said goal, whether it's achieving financial success or physical success in like sports or travel or fashion or public speaking or writing or music. And some people, to the detriment of the rest of their life, like in the movie Whiplash, which I just watched. I had it on in the background while I was doing my honeydew list by picking stuff up off the walls and whatnot and having to put it back and all that kind of business. Whiplash was in the background. One of my favorite movies. Great movie. Big FU at the very end of it. Love it. If you haven't seen it, go watch it if you haven't seen it. And our main character is absolutely positively focused on being the best drummer he could ever be, ever. And to the detriment of like spoiling his relationship with his family and stuff. And player characters are often so hyper focused, like they don't have family or friends. That's where the murder hobo thing comes from. And I think sometimes we lose a little bit of that in our gaming drama and conflict. And I think sometimes even players don't realize that the more they cut out the background of the more they disassociate their character from being distracted, the more there's no conflict in the character's life, which makes them very flat, right? So not having family or friends or connections to anything in your gaming world is often one of those things where, as a game master, sometimes we roll our eyes because we need as many tools in our toolbox to complicate the lives of the players. That's what we need, right? And sometimes that complication are fantasy, monsters, and such. Other times, maybe we get bored. Like, okay, we don't need another group of orcs, right? We need something more important, and we don't want something more complicated. And having a complication of like whether the player shows up to the marriage of their older sister, or left home without speaking to their uncle and aunt before they left and stole the family sword. In science fiction, whether they are an escaped android from a place that was a prototype, and they want to get you back, and they're not really here to destroy you, but they want to make more of you. And is that fair to you as a singular sentient AI and whatever things? Those kind of questions. We as storytellers and game masters, we want players to like feel conflicted and to feel challenged and to feel like that is a real issue for the character without having to. We want to embrace the art of that conflict without having to always go to the numerical value, the science of, oh, here's another stat block, here's another combat encounter, which is why um, exploration is an atrophied skill that we don't really see too often, because a lot of exploration is very non-specific. What do you find when you explore? What kind of knowledge do you explore? Do you find through successfully exploring a place? And players should be self-motivated to find as much knowledge as they can. In the OSR, knowledge is power, right? There weren't very many die rolls to get yourself out of situations, but you sure as hell could narratively figure it out. And if you knew that there was a Medusa down on the third level of the dungeon, then you knew, okay, we just found a mirror. We might need to take that mirror off the wall and bring it with us. Now, if you didn't know that information and there was a mirror on the wall, you might make some jokes about mirror, mirror on the wall out of game, but you would leave it up on the wall. You're like, I'm not carrying a mirror around with me. But maybe the players are like, we could stick it in our bag of holding, and I don't know if the opening of a bag of holding is that big, but you get the point. Our portable hole, and then pull it out when we need it, and then, set it up at the end of the hallway, and maybe we could have the Medusa chase us down the hallway. And then what we'll do is I'll cast a light spell, over top of it, and then we'll put a cloak over it and then attach a rope to the cloak, and you get these creative ideas. And after you do that, me as a game master, mentally I'm going, I don't know if it's going to work, but internally I'm going, slow clap, dudes, slow clap. That sounds awesome. Yeah. Now outwardly I'm going, that shit ain't going to work, but okay, if that's what you want to do. And then when it really happens, I'm just like, well, the Medusa turns the corner, you know her eyes piercing the darkness or whatever, and then suddenly you snatch the cloak away, and the mirrors illuminate in front of her eyes, and she stares at the horror that is herself, and blah blah blah, and slowly turns to stone. And they're like, yeah, we didn't have to roll anything, right? um that's how that works, because there are people who are confronting the things in your world and being self-motivated to do so. And unfortunately, we really don't see that too often anymore. So it's unfortunate. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Drew. Thank you, everyone else, for just partaking in the show. I know it's not very interesting for everyone. Yeah, the Yan King says, I'm not carrying a mirror. That's a terrible adventure. Hell yeah. Shit. I've played many a fighter in the OSR that had like marbles, sand, feathers, nails, small mirrors. What's the thing? Pestle and mortar, flint to spark fire, shit, all bunches of stuff. Chickens. I mean, we carry all kinds of stuff. Rolls of thread, candles, man, anything and everything we would have. Like, well, I'm gonna cut the candle in half and then light it so that when it starts to melt away, the candle will be underneath the rope, and eventually the fire will break the rope, and the rope will snap, and then the thing will fall down and close the door, and blah blah. We did all that shit as OSR players, and unfortunately, for modern gamers, there were no rules for that. Like 10-foot poling a thing really didn't have rules for it. It was just you either had the 10-foot pole or you didn't, and you either used it or you did. You used it or you didn't use it. It wasn't like, oh, a 10-foot pole adds a +3 to it. No, it didn't. Yep. There you go, Drew. Yep. That's the hell yeah. That's exactly right. Yeah. Chickens are good since a feral ghoul cannot abide them. And we had some fun with things like that. Like we would have, we would let we'd have a sack of insects and let them go to distract the thing that was interested in eating the one thing instead of the other thing, right? And that was the game master role playing the monster who's hungry and has an easier time eating chickens than it is going after humans with pointy things poking them all the time. I'll eat like 5 chickens instead of you folks who keep pointing me tasty bits covered in metal and things like that. Yeah, why do that? Why go after the humans when I can eat some chickens? And that requires the game master to really embrace what the world is, to role play the world. And I don't mean like, okay, there is a way to role play undead, like mindless undead, zombie skeletons. Okay. If a player jumps across a huge crevice, do the undead chase blindly the living flesh of the character and falls down into the crevice? Is that role playing, or do the undead do the most tactically sound thing and stop at the edge of the crevice? Maybe they do. Maybe the undead don't leave the region or the room, or maybe the undead are either very scared of or want to destroy anyone carrying a holy symbol. Looking at you, cleric and possible paladin and or herald and or warlock and other character types that might be right. It might be that. And does the character drape their holy symbol on a tree branch and run around the corner and see the undead trying to scramble up the tree to get the? I mean, I don't know, but that requires role playing, and we really don't see prescriptive narrative elements like that included in adventure design and as a method to solve an issue, which is what exploration has always been. It is about gathering knowledge and learning from the environment. You don't learn that feral ghouls love chickens until the player characters in the world learn that chickens are really good for getting feral ghouls away from you, right? And then that becomes a thing. It's the trolls not healing from being burned by fire and acid. And you know, learning those things is kind of a cool treat. It's like I didn't realize that. Flattering false flattery for dragons is a thing. And you don't learn that until it happens. So, guys, have a great one. I'm taking too much of your time. Thank you very much for spending your valuable time here. Because you have done so, not only do I really appreciate it, but also I hope to make change for your tabletop role-playing experiences as well. Again, if you guys have any great ideas or foci, or other things you'd like to talk about, whether there are new television shows or other things of that nature, please bring them up. We love to talk about the geekisms on this side of the interwebs. You are free to do so as well. So, guys, have a great one. Thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Also, have a great day. And if you've gotten this far and you're brand new to this channel, please do the free thing. Call to action stuff, right? Please like, share, subscribe, follow, ring notification bell. Let your friends and enemies know about the channel as well, and spread the word. So, guys, have a great one. Thank you very much. Peace and tranquility. Bye.